Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. We come to you on the back of a disappointing defeat against Fulham yesterday evening. But before we dive into our match analysis, let's see who we've got on the show today. We welcome back Joseph Sayers. Joe, how are you doing, my brother?
Yeah, moving on.
Short and sweet. Kurtis, friend, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, just peachy.
How are you, Tom?
Yeah, Tom.
Well, I'm back up in the Midlands, as you can tell from my beautiful backdrop with my shirt.
I'm sorry to hear that, Tom.
Yeah, me too. But no, it was a beautiful, albeit short time in Sussex. But no, back up in the Midlands, readying myself for the new school year, which starts next week. Would have feeling a bit better this morning if last night hadn't have been such a pain. But we'll dive into that in due course. Yeah, it was a tough one to take last night. But I think I'm going to preface this podcast off by saying we're not going to be down negative, but we are going to be honest. You know, there's a fine line between sort of that honesty and that sort of, oh, we're rubbish, we're going down. You know, that's not what this podcast is about. We will, of course, critique player performances, tactics, and whatnot. But we're not going to just be ranting and raving. So if that's what you want as a cathartic exercise, maybe this podcast isn't the one for you today. But trust me, I am feeling cross. I'm quite cross about last night, but we'll get into that and I'll explain why I'm feeling a bit cross. I like to start with Joe's got a hammer out for you audio listeners. That's how angry he is. We're going to start by looking at the starting 11 because that's when my disquiet, although it wasn't really disquiet because I voiced it on the group chat, that's when my disquiet began because in the starting 11, there was no recognised striker. Now, Joe, I understand resting Danny Welbeck after the quick turnaround from Saturday after playing the best part of 90 minutes. I can't remember if Welbeck played the whole game or not against Leeds, but it was a quick turnaround. But there was no Undav on the pitch. Joe, were you surprised at Graham Potter's starting 11?
To be honest, when it released, and I'm going based off of how I felt at the time, obviously not based on the result, because hindsight is a fantastic thing. At the time, I wasn't overly concerned. Because of a few of our away performances last season, we started with Leandro Trossard in the false nine position, and we played quite well. So I wasn't overly concerned. But as the game went on, obviously that it showed that we need that focal point up front. And obviously Danny Welbeck being the way he is with his injuries, Graham Potter doesn't want to risk that. What does Undav have to do to get a start? We bring him in to essentially, I would say, I don't think we're going to bring in a striker by the end of the window, but we'll talk about that later. But I think that Undav is the Malpay replacement. That's what the club see him as. So why not put the faith in him that you've shown to bring him into a Premier League club? He scored bags of goals last season, albeit in the Belgian league. I know that the quality is different, but he clearly knows where the net is, and he's clearly a decent player if we want him here at the club. So why not give him that chance against, no disrespect to Fulham, because by the way, Fulham were absolutely fantastic yesterday. So this is no disrespect to them, but give Undav the chance against Fulham, a newly promoted side, a side that maybe he would get some opportunities against, rather than a Man City or somebody that, you know, it isn't going to give him any space whatsoever. I felt really bad for him, I have to say. But I still had a little bit of faith in Graham Potter that somehow that this team selection that he's picked would pay off. But we'll talk about that later.
We certainly will. And Kurtis, Dennis Undav started the cup game against Forest Green Rovers, but by all accounts, he didn't necessarily pull up any trees. Do you think that the Premier League is perhaps a step too far for Dennis at this particular moment? Do you think he needs more bedding in? Or was it just a case of Potter went for a tactical choice of playing a false nine?
I mean, to answer your Dennis question, we don't know, to be honest. We haven't given him the game time, so How can we be sure? We've seen him in a cup game, fine, and he scored a goal, great. But we're never going to know unless we give him the actual minutes. And I was quite surprised that he wasn't given the time yesterday. If they wanted a West, that's not a word. It is, but not the word I'm looking for. If they wanted to rest Welbeck, it was good to see him come on, but like at that point, it just sort of felt too late. I don't know. Like Joe was saying, I don't know what more he has to do. I mean, I'm assuming, Potter had this idea in his head, and it didn't quite pan out in that sense yesterday. So.
No, it certainly did not pan out. And we'll talk a little bit more about how long it took Potter to realise that it wasn't panning out a bit later. But Joe, every early indicator from Fulham, as you have rightfully pointed out already, who played very well last night, every early indicator was that Fulham were going to pile a lot of pressure on Brighton. And within the opening minutes, Brighton had already conceded a few chances involving, including Sanchez having to make a useful stop at the back. Eventually, this saw Brighton switch to a back four instead of using a back five. What did you make of that switch between the four and the three and the four?
To be honest, for a period of time, it seemed to contain Fulham to a level. I think Webster was struggling on the left hand side of defence, so I believe him and Dunkey switched. Which somebody pointed out on Twitter is the second time that's happened over the last couple of games. So again, I praise the fact that we can change our squad without putting on another player. We've got all these different systems that sometimes work, sometimes don't. Obviously, it didn't work yesterday. But it's just one of those things that, yeah, you can say, don't fix it if it's not broken. But Graham Potter, as we know, is a manager that's going to pick a team based on the opponents. And he's not afraid to change things. We had this running joke that you can never guess a Graham Potter 11. Yes, we've been guessing it for the first 3-4 games of the season because we've been playing really well, and he's obviously wanted to keep a winning team together. There's been a few injuries, there's been a few players falling out of form, maybe, and he's trying to change it. And there's been a lot of issues that obviously have been sort of papered over the cracks because of the results that we've got, which you pointed out yesterday, Tom. And I think we obviously saw the issues yesterday, but I have full faith in Graham Potter that he will learn from the mistakes that he made tactically. The players will learn from the effort they didn't put in, and maybe they couldn't quite put across what Graham Potter wanted to do on the pitch. But it's just a massive learning curve, and it's a massive wake-up call that, no, we're not going to be the ones that are up there all season in the Champions League spots. We're not. That's a reality. And it's great that we can get carried away and we can have a laugh. We can have fun. People disappointed that we didn't win so we could go top of the Premier League. For me, that's not a massive thing. It doesn't matter. We're not going to stay there. If we do, fantastic. But being realistic and honest, as you said at the start of the podcast, Tom, we have to be. And these things are going to happen. And there comes a very fine line between... Sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here. There comes a very fine line between being honest and having your opinion to damn right toxicity towards the players, just because for one game out of 38 they don't perform how you expect them to. May I remind people that they're human beings, first of all, and this is going to happen. They're a football team, for crying out loud. Manchester United spend over £1 billion worth of transfers and they can't put a team together. We've got a really solid base for a fantastic team, which we've seen over the last 4 games before this one, that we have to just get behind. And it's worked before. We've had really tough moments, and we've come through it, and it will happen again. You just have to put this result to the back of your mind, go again on Sunday, and then hope that we pull something out of the bag, because I have full faith.
Yeah, you have to have full faith. I think, losing is part and parcel of football. It just is. We're not going to win every single game. We're not going to do an Invincibles run like Arsenal did back in the day. But as you say, Joe, there's a fine line between honestly critiquing last night's performance, because we have to be honest, it wasn't a good performance, and downright toxicity. I got called all sorts of terrible, horrible names because I had the audacity to try and bring a discussion about Solly March away from the petulant, childish, but he's, into a more adult conversation, shall we say. And I was called all sorts of names under the sun for daring to do such a thing. So as we've said on this podcast many times, it's absolutely okay to critique player performances, which we will do in this podcast today. But you have to do it in a way that doesn't make you sound like a petulant 12-year-old. And let's leave it at that, shall we? And just to clarify for the listeners out there, what Joe was saying about in regards to papering over the cracks is I had a slight concern in the Newcastle game and in the Leeds game that we were a bit loose in possession. Of course, getting 4 points from those two games made it perhaps not such a massive talking point. But yesterday, Kurtis, possession, we couldn't just get anything to stick, could we? Do you think that was because we didn't have that focal point in Danny Welbeck, or do you think we were just trying a bit too hard?
I think it was a myriad of different issues, but really, mainly, I think, like the focal point, like you said, someone to hold up the ball, like Welbeck and whatnot. But like we just couldn't. Every time a ball was passed to us, it seemed like they had an answer to that equation. We just could not hold on to it, and they did really well to pressure us and not give us any space to allow us to make these plays and whatnot. So you have to applaud them for that. But it was frustrating to watch, and I hope, like Joe said, that they can look back on this and they can learn and they can be like, okay, this is where we went wrong and this is how we can grow from it and stuff like that. But it was just frustrating.
Yeah, and of course, Potter and his team will, sit down with the lads and they will analyse this performance. They'll analyse what went wrong and what they need to improve upon going into the weekend. I think, Joe, that the first half especially highlighted just how important Danny Welbeck, or a player to his similar stature, I suppose, and has those sort of same key areas of expertise, if you like. It highlights how important that player is in the system that we've utilised so far this season, how important he is to the team. With Enoch Mwepu playing, I suppose, as the more of the focal point and nothing sticking, did you expect Potter to make changes at half-time?
Again, it's one of those things where we as fans expect what we expect, and Graham Potter has a completely different idea because he's the coach. He knows what he's doing. But if I was him, I would have changed something, because it was very clear to everyone that it wasn't working. Obviously, Graham Potter has a lot of trust, and is obviously very honest with his players and says, look, that 45 minutes was awful. Let's see if you, the 11 on the pitch, can change that. And if you don't change that, then I will make changes. I feel that's a really good approach. It might not work out all the time how us fans want to, but it's good that Graham Potter installs that trust in his players that he's going to send out the same 11 that didn't perform to anywhere near the levels that we expect over the last 4 games that we've seen. But he puts that trust in them, and I actually respect that. Again, we can be down that it didn't work, but on another day maybe it would have, and then we'll be hailing them as heroes. But that's not the case, and we just have to go with whatever Graham Potter says or wants to do, and trust that he's going to make the right decisions. as I said earlier, hindsight is a fantastic thing. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's frustrating, but you just have to go with it.
And I think it's good as well that in one of the post-match interviews I heard with Potter, he admitted that he got it wrong. And I think that's important that he did that because, we're all very complimentary of Potter when he gets it right, and which is most of the time, in my opinion. And I think it's important that we talk about, that he didn't get it right sometimes. So.
Yeah, I think, as we said at the top of the show, it's about being honest, and it's about analyzing things in a way in which is, again, it's not just that base level of, oh, we were crap. It's beyond that. Yes, the performance wasn't good, but it's analyzing why it wasn't good. From my own 2 cents, I think it was relatively clear in the first 45 that things weren't working. I totally understand what Joe said because I echoed it in the group chat because, Joe, you mentioned about Solly March. I said about, we'll keep Solly out there for another 10, see what he can do. And that's obviously what he did with Mwepu as well. But I think, Graham has to, I suppose, he has to take responsibility, as he did at the end of the game, as you say, Kurtis, and said, I got it wrong. Because that first 45 minutes wasn't working. And in my opinion, changes should have been made earlier. But as Joe says, we just have to move from that. Graham will learn from that because, that is part and parcel of the job. You take success and failure together, and you normally learn more from your failures than you do your successes. But the second half started with Caicedo and Tete. There was a challenge. I just want to raise this issue because we've said, Joe, already that this season that Caicedo has put in some absolutely phenomenal tackles that one moment you think, oh God, how is he? He's going in from behind. He's gonna get himself sent off. He comes away with the ball. Caicedo and Tete had an aerial challenge. They came together. They both fell, and Tete hurt his back. Caicedo grabbed the back of his leg. They were both okay in the end, and Fulham were awarded a free kick. I said in the group chat that I was amazed that Caicedo escaped a booking there. Caicedo goes into challenges wholeheartedly, and more often than not, he comes away with the ball. But Joe, do you think it's something that we as Brighton fans will inevitably have to accept that one day he's probably going to get himself sent off?
Yeah, he's just that type of player, isn't he? He's I'm going to use the word again, guys. He's tenacious. He wants the ball, and he will get the ball through any way in which he thinks is possible. And if that means he goes through a player and almost snaps him in half in the process, he probably will do that. So let's not forget he's a really young guy. He's still learning. He's still growing as well physically. Maybe he might change his ways, but to be honest, I don't want him to. I think the player that he is a player that every single team in the world would love to have. It's just a player that is going to fight for every single ball. And if they get booking, if they get sent off, then that's just part of the game. And that's just part of a ball-winning midfielder's way of playing. But he could go the other way, and he could turn into a Kante-esque player. And I don't remember really Kante getting many sort of sendings off. Really smart about the way he goes about his business. And yeah, we could see that intelligence ramp up because, as I say, he's a young guy. He's still learning about the game. And what fantastic players to learn off: Pascal Gross, Adam Lallana, people like that have played relatively similar positions to him. And have played at a higher level than him for most of their career. So yeah, it's exciting, but we have to accept that the way he is, there is a chance that he could get sent off like Yves Bissouma did a few times.
Yeah, and there's another thing that we're going to have to probably accept, Kurtis, is the fact that as a talented young individual who's putting in some fantastic performances, that other clubs will notice him. Graham Potter was asked about a rumoured £42 million bid, believed to be from Liverpool, and Graham Potter responded, that might get you his boots. And then Paul Barber, who went on TalkSport, reiterated that fact. Kurtis, what have you made of, Caicedo's start to the season, and do you think it's just inevitable that we're going to probably see teams come in for him because of how well he is performing?
I mean, this is my message to the big six. This is why you don't want him. He's too risky. You just don't want him. We'll hold on to him. We'll keep a good hold on him. But no, seriously, yeah, he's his talent is immeasurable. He's got a very high ceiling. He's passionate about it. He cares a lot. But yeah, those tackles sometimes are a bit scary. But I feel like he wouldn't make them unless he felt like he had to make them. I don't feel like they're reckless, you know. Yeah, but that one last night, I was quite surprised he didn't get a yellow at least. So
yeah, definitely. Now let's talk about it. Let's talk about the first goal that we've conceded from an opposing player this season. Joe, in my notes here, I've just got the word defending with a question mark. Because there didn't seem to be much of that going around. So Fulham have a corner. It's half-heartedly cleared by Enoch Mwepu. The ball falls to who I believe is McAllister or Gross, who chests it right into the path of a Fulham player. The ball is then put back into the box. Mwepu kind of again half attempt at getting the ball, a low cross straight across the front of the defenders, and Estupiñán doesn't track the run of Mitrovic, who slots in at the far post. What did you make of it?
I mean, there's plenty of opportunities for us to not concede that goal. I think it goes through pretty much our whole team, especially our back line. And I think it's a case of maybe all of our players expecting that somebody else was going to deal with it. And that's why I think we'll talk about the second goal, obviously, in a minute. But that's why I think the second goal went the way it did. Yeah, as I say, I think it's just a case of people thinking, oh, it'll go past me and somebody else will clear it. No desire, no fight to sort of make sure that ball goes nowhere near our box. And as you say, Estupiñán loses the mark, loses his man. And Mitrovic is never, ever going to miss from there. And what a player he is, can I just say. We don't normally praise opposing players on this podcast unless they're really stand out, but Mitrovic is a player that I would absolutely die for at this football club. He would just, yeah, what a player he would be for us. And I believe we even had a chance to sign him a good few seasons ago, so I think we missed out on that one, but hey ho, stuff happens. I was about to swear, but I'm not going to. So yeah, it's really frustrating that our concentration levels dipped and the ball just carves through our defence and Mitrovic is there to stab home.
It was a very un-Brighton goal to concede, was it not, Kurtis? As Joe sort of alluded to there, lots of chances to stop the ball coming into the box, lots of chances to clear the initial corner, but no one seemed to want to be the one to step up and do it.
It was strange. It was all just one sloppy pile. It just was not. It was not very good at all. But yeah, I think it's what Joe said. Like they were all just waiting for someone else to do it, and then there was a bit of confusion, and then no one was marking Mitrovic, who was an absolute menace throughout the entire game last night. So yeah, as Joe said, he was not gonna not get that in. So yeah, we have to do better in those sorts of situations. Yeah.
I think what frustrates me the most is, as I've just alluded to, it was a very un-Brighton-esque goal to concede. You know, we're normally very good at defending. The fact that we've only conceded 3 goals this season, 2 of which have come from our own players. You know, we've had a relatively decent record at defending spanning over to the last part of the previous season. And it just seemed very unlike us to be that sloppy.
Yeah, I agree. Webster and Dunk had a bit of an off night, unfortunately. So hopefully they can pick up for Leicester, you know? So.
Personally, I would drop Webster at Leicester. I thought he was quite poor against Newcastle. He looked better against Leeds in the back 4, but last night I think he lost his head. So if it were me, I'd probably drop him for Leicester and play Colwill. That's just my 2 cents. We'll talk about like that a bit later, but that's probably where I'm at the moment. Let's talk about the second goal that we conceded then. a very frustrating goal to concede, Joe, because it started at the other end of the pitch. We had a corner, and then and then Lewis Dunk, who I told you would score last night. Lewis Dunk puts the ball in his own net. I mean, it was a very frustrating goal to concede. Estupinian lost possession, committed the foul as well. Fulham broke up the pitch. Pereira put the cross in. Dunk stretches his leg out, perhaps even as I said to you, Joe, before we started recording, to we must make amends for the lack of not doing that for the first goal, and it puts the ball past Sanchez. What did you make of the second goal, Joe?
No, obviously you've spoken about the whole corner situation, and I don't think any team of our quality should be conceding a goal from our own corner. That just baffled me completely, because my BT Sports stream was behind. I was watching on my laptop, and I thought, oh great, we've got a chance to score here and bring it back to 1-1. And then in the group chat was, oh my god, I can't believe this. What's going on? This, that, and the other. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? And then I see obviously what happens next. Dunkey's a very honest man. He's a very wear your heart on your sleeve defender. And you see that in his performances sometimes. And he's absolutely tearing it back to try and get the block in. As we've said, trying to make up for the fact that maybe he wasn't doing his job for the first goal, or maybe taking the responsibility to try and make sure we didn't concede from an extremely sloppy corner routine. And that's what happens when you throw your body in front of a cross or a shot. It deflects and it can go past your goalkeeper and into your own net. That's just the life of being a defender, unfortunately. We're not strangers to seeing that happen to Dunkey, because he is that type of player that's just going to throw himself in front of it in the hope that it's going to get deflected behind or bounce out to an opponent, to a teammate, and get the ball clear. Fantastic finish from him, to be fair. Sanchez was completely wrong-footed. So yeah, let's go full on Adam Virgo and stick Lewis Dunk up front for Leicester.
I'm here for it. Anything to give us a target man if Welbeck's not fit. Kurtis, let's talk about Estupinian. Estupinian was dispossessed for the second goal. And Mitrovic, he committed the foul on Mitrovic, which he was later booked for. Some of the criticisms levelled at Purvis during the Leeds performance was he was a bit too casual in possession. Do you think this is another example of him needing to quite quickly get up to speed with the pace of the Premier League?
Yes, basically. Yeah, I thought he was quite poor yesterday, but so was a lot of the team. But yeah, I feel like, I just feel like he needs to just, get into it a bit more and be a bit more careful, because there was a lot of errant balls, a lot of silly challenges that were made. And yeah, he won us the pen, but like, it's, again, we'll have to just see how he kicks on from here, because he really just has to take a look at that performance and realise that was not good enough from him. So
I think what he has to do is just do the simple things right. He's very, very keen to impress, very keen to show why the club have brought him here. Maybe a little bit of pressure to live up to the expectations that Kukurea lived up to last season, and coming from the same league, obviously, for roughly around the same price tag. As I said last time, Kukurea had a tough start to his life in the Premier League, and then he delivered a masterclass against Leicester City. And who have we got next? So a lot of parallels. But no, as I say, I think he just has to do the simple things right and just ease himself in, as you said, Kurtis, and just have Graham Potter coach him through a really tough transition into one of the best leagues in the world.
Yeah, there's no doubt going to be a bit of a culture shock between, the leagues across Europe and the Premier League. It's well established that you don't get as much time and space on the ball in the Premier League as perhaps you do in other top European leagues. And, fair play to him, because he did have a reasonable debut against Leeds. Me and Joe were raving about him. But last night, as you rightfully said, Kurtis, as a whole team, we were below par. So perhaps the criticism that's leveled at Estupiñán last night on socials was a bit uncalled for when you consider that it was a team performance.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Like, you can't expect one person to play well if the whole team isn't playing well. It works as a machine. Every part's got to do its thing, and if that's not working, it all falls apart. So.
Yeah, and we said that exactly when we were trying to pick a man of the match against Leeds. We were saying about how difficult it was because every player did a really fantastic job. And it was almost the reverse of that against Fulham. Every player sort of seemed to be a bit off. And that meant, as you say, Curtis, a lovely analogy with the machine wasn't working as well as it could be. But Estupiñán, as you say, Curtis, he won us the penalty by getting kicked. So that was pretty good. It was one of those things where a lot of times we've said, Joe, about Brighton players are honest and they stay on their feet. Do you think that the penalty wouldn't have been given if Estupiñán hadn't have gone down? Because he did go down, he did clutch his leg, and he was like, writhing about a bit. But in my eyes, at least, I don't know if that would have been checked if he hadn't have done that. What did you make of it?
Oh, cool. Honestly, who knows with VAR? Who knows what they check, what they don't check? The regulations of what should be checked and what shouldn't. You just don't know, and maybe not. We've seen it a lot with players being honest and not going down, where they sort of stumble and try and get the ball and they don't get given the penalty, but it would be given a free kick anywhere else because the referee would play advantage. So the advantage in the penalty area should be if you don't get the ball after you try to stay on your feet, it should be a penalty kick. So. Yeah, but I think obviously Estupiñán was always going to go down because I think he was already off balance anyway. It just so happened that Decordova-Reid tried to snap his leg in the process. But to be fair to the Fulham player, he was trying to clear the ball and Estupiñán's leg gets in the way, and it was slightly clumsy from him, and it gave us a chance to get back into the game. And I thought McAllister took his penalty extremely well.
Yeah, he really did. And as you say, Joe, there was no malice in the challenge. It was just a miss kick. But you could see Alexis McAllister holding the ball on the penalty spot. He knew that he was going to be the man to take it. And Kurtis, what a penalty it was. And it did give us a bit of hope going into the last half an hour.
Yeah, definitely. I said to my brother who was sat next to me, I said, right, okay, that should give us a bit of fire now. Like some belief that we can, that we can come back into this and at least get a point, but seemingly not.
No. I suppose the next major thing that happened is a triple substitution. Mwepu finally left the pitch about 20 minutes too late, in my opinion, bringing Welbeck on. And I was a bit confused. This was another thing that just going back to the starting 11 and Undav, because for me, if Welbeck wasn't fit enough to start, but you're going to give him half an hour at the end of the game. If his fitness is really that questionable, why not bring on Undav? I must admit, guys, I'm a bit concerned about this because I think, as I say, like at halftime, it was clear it wasn't working. Still no changes. Undav didn't start when Welbeck wasn't fit. I have to believe that if Maupay had still been at the club, Maupay would have started the game last night. I know that we've played a false nine before, but we were playing Mwepu, a player that has yet to start a game this season, as a false nine instead of Dennis Undav. I can't pretend that I'm not a little bit concerned. It indicates to me that perhaps Potter doesn't trust Undav. Joe, do you think perhaps I'm overthinking it?
To be honest, I don't agree with you. I think that Maupay wouldn't have started based on how the end of last season went. I don't think Maupay could have bought a game or bought a start at end of last season. I think that relationship with him and Graham Potter completely broke down, and there was no trust there. I said at the start of the podcast, he trusts his players, he trusts the 11 he put out to change something. And with bringing Danny Welbeck on, whether fitness is the question or not, he was bringing on a player that he trusts. Maybe Undav We don't know. As I said before, we're not in training 24/7 with the players. Maybe Undav hasn't shown enough to earn him a start. That's how football works. If you show enough in training, if you show how hard you're working, 9 times out of 10 you will get given the manager's trust and you will play. Obviously, if the person in front of you drops form or isn't fit. So for me, Danny Welbeck was brought on because that's a player that has performed at a really high level for us over the last 4 games, and Graham Potter was trusting that he could hopefully use that experience and use his quality to get us back into the game.
Well, I definitely don't dispute that, Joe. Definitely don't dispute that whatsoever, that Welbeck has that quality. The only question mark being about the comments regarding Welbeck's fitness. As I say, if Welbeck wasn't fit enough to start the game, if Welbeck wasn't fit enough for 45 minutes, question marks still remain in my head about, is Undav up to it?
I think then it comes the fact that I don't think Undav is the same player as Welbeck. I don't think he has the same attributes at all to do the job that Welbeck has been doing really well. So we'll talk about the transfer window obviously later on or in a separate episode, but we need maybe another Danny Welbeck option. And we'll see whether the club follow through with that. I don't know. We've been frustrated before with the club not signing a striker when we feel it's the right time for them to sign a striker, or as you said yesterday on the group chat, Tom, take a gamble and roll the dice. Yesterday is the clear evidence that something needs to happen.
Yeah, no arguments here. One substitution that did excite me, Kurtis, was Matoma coming on. And he really did look lively in that second half. He was probably, I would go as far as to say, the only bright spark of the entire performance for me. What did you make of Matoma's cameo yesterday?
Fantastic. I mean, we looked refreshed as soon as he came on. Like, he had just oodles of pace, and he was making some great runs and whatnot. And I would love to see him start against Leicester, personally. So we'll just have to wait and see. But definitely, once we made those substitutions, it looked so much more fresh and whatnot. So it was a bit of a shame that they were made as late as they were. So yeah, he was fantastic.
Yeah, he was. And I think Lamptey looked decent as well when he came on. I'm still a bit sort of unsure about Lamptey. I don't know if he's up to starting just yet, especially with the form that Solly March is in. And Joel Veltman, of course, who has been excellent. I thought Joel Veltman looked a bit wobbly yesterday, but apparently he was had a neck injury. Again, questions about whether he should have started or not are there to be had. But no, the changes were made. But Joe, it was all a bit too late, wasn't it? Better 30 minutes, has to be said. We did play the better part of 30 minutes. But again, too little, too late, was it not?
Yeah. Frustrating, annoying. If you give Matoma a half, maybe he frustrates the Fulham defenders enough to create more opportunities than he did, to run in behind or to win fouls or to get us up the pitch that much more, because he can do that. He's got the pace and the quality to get in behind. And that's again what we were lacking yesterday, just a bit of creativity, a bit of fight and speed. And I think that he's slowly earning his stripes, if you like, and should be given the chance to start a game for us and to show really what he can do with a full 90 minutes. And with Tarek, I wasn't actually overly impressed with him yesterday, especially towards the end of the game. For a player with as much energy as him and as much explosiveness, I would expect a little bit more. I just feel Tarek at the moment is a little bit too soft, a bit too weak. That defenders can literally just, I think they found him out, to be honest. They know what he's going to do. They know they can just step across and block him, and that pace stops. So that's a little bit of a shame. But I hope that we see the Tarek that we know and love come back, and he gets that little bit more confidence to win us fouls by players finding him out. I just felt he was a little bit too, like, if he felt a touch, he stopped. So yeah, as you say, too much, too little, too late, and we move on.
We do. I mean, Joe, you mentioned about, especially towards the end of the game, Kurtis. I think it's fair to say that in the last 6 minutes of injury time, Brighton have Albion lost their heads. We had the ball. We were a goal down. It was the 90-something minute, and Sanchez is playing short balls out to Webster, and then it goes behind for a Fulham corner. It was all just a bit. It was a comedy of errors, shall we say? What did you make of that? I suppose the final 6 minutes of the game.
I was screaming at the television. I was like, what the bloody hell are you doing? Like, I was like, what is this mess? And like, fair play to Fulham, man. Like, they bamboozled us good. Like, they kept that ball in the corner for about 5 minutes, and then there was some weird goalkeeper stuff. It was all just like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like someone turned a disco ball on somewhere, and we were like, let's just dance. Let's have a dance here in the box. Seems like a better idea. It was weird, though. Yeah, I agree. We just capitulated. You know, it was just all sort of. Oh, I don't have the words, Thomas. No words. That's what you said in the chat. No words.
It all fell apart. And we haven't even talked about the Sanchez howler. Dropping the ball. We haven't talked about that. I think we have to say that Fulham played really well yesterday. Really, really well. But a team like City would have torn us apart if we put in a performance like that against them. They would tear us a new one. We'd be on the receiving end of potentially a similar scoreline to Bournemouth against Liverpool. So let's hope that that's a blip out of our system. And as you say, guys, we move. As you said, Kurtis, Potter was very honest and pragmatic in his post-match press conferences. He's held his hand up and gone, you know what, it was below par and we'll work on it. But Joe, stepping back from the performance, 10 points from the first 5 games. I mean, surely at the beginning of the season, you would have bitten anyone's hand off for that, no?
Yeah, absolutely. We sit comfortably in 4th position in the Premier League after 5 games. Nobody can overtake us tonight or tomorrow. We're speaking on the day after the game, so Wednesday and Thursday. All of those fixtures played. Nobody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's right. So yeah, we're sitting pretty, and we've got a chance against bottom of the league Leicester on Sunday to put things right. And how lucky we are that games are coming thick and fast for us to put things right. And I have full faith in this team, as I've said all along, that we can perform a lot better in front of our home crowd. The atmosphere at the Amex for the last 2 games, by the way, has been absolutely fantastic. Nothing but getting behind the lads and getting behind everyone else that starts chants and starts some noise. It's been a breath of fresh air. So let's get back to the Amex. Let's have a great afternoon. And get back to the performance that we know this team can put in.
That was quite good yesterday, actually. Even when we were losing, I could hear the fans in full voice cheering on the boys, and that was really good to hear. Because I think it would be, there's a lot of reactionary stuff on Twitter, and I think people expect that we're gonna win 20 games in a row or something, and we're gonna just storm that. Yeah, it's all jokes. Yeah, like I'd love that to happen, but it's not. Realistically, we have to accept that we will lose games, and it's a particularly Brighton thing to do, to lose to teams like Fulham. But you know what I mean? It's just a very Brighton thing. But ultimately, we have to just say that they were better than us, and that's that, because they were so much better.
Yep, in every way, shape, or form. But it was almost written in the stars, wasn't it? Chance to go top of the league. Not that it really matters. It's still August. Chance to go top of the league, playing a newly promoted team. Anyone who's watched Brighton for any length of time could have told you what was going to happen. But we move.
The thing is, sorry, just one final point. The thing is, we went top of the league. I know it was only for 6 minutes, but that is the gimmick that. The gimmick that our fans wanted, for us to go top of the league for a period of time. Yes, if we won yesterday, we would have been top of the league for a full day. But what's the difference? Does are people really that bothered about us going top of that? This might sound absolutely ludicrous for me to say that I don't care if we go top of the league or not. But we're not going to stay there.
Yeah.
We just won't. So why does it matter?
I care if we're top of the league in May, not particularly in August. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have that little, we're top of the league, as we said on the last podcast. But it's not going to be the difference between me supporting the club and not. But anyway, we move. So we've sort of started chatting about Leicester, who are very out of sorts at the moment. I've already alluded to some changes that I would make against Leicester. So I'm interested, Joe, into hearing what you would change against Leicester. What would Joe say is changed from yesterday's game against Fulham?
Joe Sayers, the manager, the well-renowned, fantastic manager of the season for 6 years running, he would choose to start Sanchez, obviously. I would go with a back three again. I would have Veltman, Dunk, and rightly so, drop Webster and have Colwill in there. I think that was a very bold and honest shout from you, Tom, and I'm fully behind it. I would have, I think, Solly and Trossard as wing backs. I would drop Estupinian. I think he has to learn that if you do put in performances like that, then you're not going to play the next game. I would then have McAllister and Caicedo in the middle because I think they've been wonderful. Out of sorts yesterday. Aaron pointed out that he didn't even realise McAllister was playing. But I think that his performances will pick up again. And then let me just count how many that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
You got three
more.
left.
And then I would have Pascal Gross. I've left myself short here. Pascal Gross and Matoma behind Danny Welbeck.
No arguments here. That's exactly what my starting 11 would be as well. Kurtis, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, to echo what Joe and what yourself has said, Thomas, I would pretty much go for exactly the same lineup. And if Welbeck isn't fit, play Undav if he can. But yeah, I would go for that.
Yeah, I think if Welbeck isn't fit and Undav isn't trusted, play Ferguson. Because Ferguson looked better against Forest Green Rovers than Undav did. So let's talk a little bit about Dennis Undav, because I've already sort of raised my concerns a little bit. I do feel like, well, my perception is that Potter doesn't think he's up to it yet. We still have 30 something hours until the transfer window closes. No, we don't. We have 40 something hours. I don't know. 30. I could do the math, but I'm not going to. We have some time, some allotted time until the transfer window closes, Joe. Rumours are that we may bring in Billy Gilmore from Chelsea. It's worth mentioning here that would have to be a permanent deal, as we've already loaned Levi Colwill from them, and Premier League rules state that you cannot have two loans from the same club. So it would have to be a permanent, or the Levi Colwill loan would become a loan with an obligation to buy to make that happen. You've already said you don't think they would. But in an ideal world, Joe, would you like to see the club bring in more reinforcements up top?
Yeah, we need the depth, clearly. And as we've said many times, that we can't rely on Danny Welbeck as much as we'd love to, because I will repeat, I think he's fantastic for us. But the fitness is a concern. So we need another option like Danny Welbeck that can do the same job. Who that is, I don't know. The recruitment team do their job because they're much better at it than the fans are, than I am, than anyone is, than anyone in the media is, or anything. So hopefully there's some names on the list. I'm not going to give you any names because I literally don't know who could do that job. But let's hope there is some names and some options that we're looking at bringing in before 11 p.m. tomorrow, the 1st of September.
It's worth saying here, Joe, that it's worth remembering that isn't your job. That is one of the things that quite frustrates me a little bit about, as soon as you're, as a Brighton fan, who, I've echoed for the last 2 seasons running that we need to bring in another striker. And the response you always get is, "Oh, but we're not going to splash out £50 million on a striker." So I'm not saying we're not Villa, we're not Newcastle, we're not going to splash out £50 million on a striker. And then the rebuttal is always, "Well, who are you going to bring in then? Who's going to cost that?" As if it's my job. If I'm a football scout, we, as you say, Joe, we have to trust the club. It's worth remembering that last season, at the beginning of last season, we were willing to smash our transfer record and bring in sorry, my apologies. We were looking at bringing in Kurtis's most favouritist player, Darwin Núñez. We were looking at doing that. There was also another lad, I think, called Martinez, who we were also looking to bring in. So there will be names out there. There will be a budget set that we can go up to for these players. But it is not my job to provide a list of names for who we could sign. I don't think that's a valid way to have a conversation. It's almost like trying to deflect valid concerns about our goal scoring. I don't think we score enough goals. And there is an argument to be had that goals need to come from elsewhere on the pitch. And I'm all for that. I don't think Welbeck is a 15 to 20 goal a season striker. I know that a 15 to 20 season goal striker is going to cost mega money. But as you rightfully say, Joe, he's a phenomenal player. And when he's fit, he must start. However, there are serious question marks about how often that will be. And as we saw last night, when he doesn't start, we need to have a player who can step in. If that's not going to be Dennis Undav, it needs to be someone else, because playing without a recognised striker last night is what cost us the game, in my opinion. Because as I said in the group chat when the lineup was announced, although Welbeck hasn't scored yet this season, he has been instrumental in almost every single goal we have scored because of his hold-up play. That hold-up play was non-existent last night, which is why nothing was sticking up top, which meant all of our forward play was breaking down before it even reached their final third. So the club, in my mind, would be taking a bigger gamble bringing someone in than not replacing them at all. As Joe's already said, you need to roll
talk about you talk about 15 to 20 goals a season striker. To be honest, any striker we bring in could be that, because as you say, Tom, and I fully back it, you need to take the gamble. If you take a gamble on a player from the Championship, if you take a gamble on even like, this might sound absolutely bonkers, right? Even if you take a gamble on a player from non-league, they might turn into the next Jamie Vardy. Do you know what I'm saying? I know he had a progressive rise to the Premier League from the Championship with Leicester, and they've done a fantastic job with him. But there's got to be options and got to be players out there that can, because 15 to 20 goal a season strikers aren't just ready-made. They're not. They hit form. They find confidence. And then there you go. There's a 15 to 20 goal a season striker. You could buy a player for £2 million. The next season, he's worth 50 because of the goals he scored. So yeah, we'll see what happens. And as you say, Tom, just have to trust the club.
And also with these strikers, it's about the team that plays around them. They're not going to play nearly as well if they're not given the balls to get the goals and whatnot. And I think it was like about 2 hours ago, we were linked with Bologna forward, Moussa Barrow. So that's another one of these random things that I've been hearing. Like constantly, I'm hearing Brighton are linked with blah blah blah, do. You know, I don't know any of these people, but if that's the case, that
to be fair, blah 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 and do, they'd be pretty decent up top.
Top draw, I agree with you. Top draw stuff, but I always I trust the club to do something. So hopefully they can address this thing that we've been crying out for a while now.
Yeah, I don't think we've made a first-team striker signing for 2 seasons. I mean, I suppose Undav, but he's yet to make a first-team start. So, as I say,
Welbeck
was the last one, which was 2 seasons ago.
Okay.
We have, I mean, it might have been Zakiri, but when Zakiri did play, he played as a left wing back, which was mad.
I forgot about Zakiri. Bloody hell.
Yeah. FC Basel, I think he plays for. I think he scored a brace the other night. Maybe he could do a job. You know, and it's just one of those things. I know Graham Potter gets really frustrated.
Andone, anyone?
No, Andone is not the answer. Andone is the only reason Andone might be an answer to a question is, who is the angriest man in the world? But no, it will be a very interesting end to the transfer window. If I'm being really honest, I don't think Brighton will bring in a striker. I don't think they will. But we shall wait and see. Certainly won't rule it out.
We'll probably bring in another goalkeeper or something mad and then loan him out to Rotherham or something.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me. But no, we'll keep our eyes on the skies. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us for what I believe has been quite a cathartic expression of frustration. It wasn't necessarily ranting and raving and anger.
No.
It wasn't that.
This is exactly what I've needed, Tom. And I was extremely negative and very down last night. As Toby's mentioned before on the podcast, football can have a very serious effect on your mental health. And it very much did for me yesterday. I was extremely down. And I said, I'm not coming on. I don't want to talk about this. I don't like it. But here I am talking about it, and I feel a damn sight better. And I am very much looking forward to Sunday to support our wonderful football club yet again.
I was actually quite nonchalant about it. It happened. I was like, oh, right, okay, fine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm
whatever.
very jealous. I was lying in bed a few hours after it happened. My wife Amy comes in. Tom, you all right? You've been in a bit of a foul mood. I was like, I don't want to talk about it.
Just laying there in the fetal position, just like
No, as I said, I at the top of the show, as I say, it wasn't about being angry. I was frustrated last night. Don't get me wrong, and I think I even said at the top of the show, I was angry. I was cross, but you know what? What does it achieve? Effing and blinding and saying Potter out and Purvis out and all this nonsense. It doesn't achieve anything. But what does help, I always find, is a nice, sensible chat where no naughty words are said, and we bring, as I said, we bring the conversation above the petulant, childish level of it was rubbish, it was shit, or whatever.
Also, by the way, how was that offside? I don't even know.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where if it had gone in, obviously it would have been ruled out. But we move.
Final point, Tom.
Yeah.
You say about not swearing. Can I just say, go fudge yourself?
Is it vegan fudge?
Yes.
Cancel Joe. Hashtag cancel Joe.
We don't cancel. We challenge. I don't believe in it. We challenge. Anyway, that's enough from us. Let us know your thoughts down below. If you would like a cathartic rant, please feel free. Just because we haven't doesn't mean you can't. We're here for it. Also, let us know what your starting lineup would be against Leicester. Now, Joe, this week, just before we end the show, stop that foolishness now. Me and you, we've got our Agree to Disagree coming out this week, haven't we not?
It is out tomorrow. As I said before, it was a very fun episode to both film and to edit. If I do say so myself, it is hilarious content. So if you do fancy watching me and Tom be absolute lunatics and talk absolute nonsense like you do every week, then tune in because it's great fun. I love it.
It really was good fun to film. So yeah, we've also got some more exciting content for you. We've got an interview with an author coming up. So keep your eyes peeled for that as we will release more information closer to the date. So wherever you may be, whenever you may be, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more content if you haven't done so already. We've been Albion Obsessed and we'll see you next time. Take care.